This is the Missoula Podcast.
How does it feel?
Weird. I'm going to be like constantly checking things still, like looking back. And being like,
Yeah.
is it working?
It looks like it. Yeah, we're going up and down. Cool.
I'm going to do all the things that annoy me in editing just to show like how. Here we go.
How about a few guests with their coffee cups?
Yep, love that. Love that.
Fellas.
Congratulations.
1 year. Yeah, congratulations. 52 episodes.
52 episodes.
1 year of the Missoula Podcast.
Yeah, this is crazy. Everybody, Steven, Brandon, Nick, the man behind the camera. This is an awesome accomplishment, and we don't want to be here and like pat ourselves on the back or anything like that, but thought today would be a really cool opportunity to tell you, the listener, some of the challenges, joys of 1 year of the Missoula Podcast, some of the lessons we learned, and some of the funny stories that might come up. But more than anything, want to introduce you to Nick, the man behind everything that we do.
Never see me. Face for radio. I didn't even shave today or nothing. So, you know.
Steven and I, the podcast would not be here if it were not for Nick. We always say behind the scenes, but he's really not. He's on the front lines of managing social media, YouTube, recording, editing.
All the actual work.
Steven and I just show up, sit down, meet great people, and we'll get into that here in a little bit. But initially, you, our audience, the listeners, honestly, there is no Missoula Podcast without you. And the hundreds, now thousands of, or tens of thousands of downloads, listens, views. Our editor, our producer is sitting here at the table, and so I'm looking over at his monitor and seeing the pop-up that he just got. And are we okay, Nick? Are we still
There's
recording?
no bad time to run a smart scan, so I think we're good.
We're good.
Just,
okay.
You know, one of those.
But no, truly,
Regular pop-ups.
our audience, thank you for just your encouragement, your downloads, your support. It's been absolutely incredible. The people we've met, the relationships, the conversations we've had, and just being a small part of our community and the difference that people are making. So yeah, thank you, Missoula.
And we talk about this a lot behind the scenes and try to let you, the listener, know as much as possible. Like, we are trying to build a platform that tells stories, and that is about the people of Missoula. One of our chief goals here is not make this about us, make it about other people, try to highlight other people. And then obviously that's why you're seeing Nick for the first time. And one of the weird things about running the Missoula Podcast, in whatever small celebrity that we have, right, is actually going places and people be like, you're the podcast guy. Brandon gets it way more than I do. I get it a little bit. But that's so cool in a weird way. And so just want to thank everybody out there for like listening.
Yeah.
Like, we never thought people would listen.
If you haven't yet, please do us a favor, like, subscribe, check us out on YouTube. I know most people listen on Spotify or Apple Podcasts, but the YouTube channel is awesome. A completely different perspective of the podcast where you actually get to watch the conversation and the dialogue and the mannerisms. It's a ton of fun. But Steven, no, you're exactly right. It was over a year ago when episode 0 came out, and we talked about what is this podcast we're starting? Why are we doing it? And I remember us talking about the 100 to 120,000 people in our community, and everybody has a story. And what if we created a platform to let those who have stories be heard? Because most people don't have a platform for their story to be heard. And I cannot believe the last 51 episodes, the stories, the highs and lows, the wins, the adversities, we could talk about all 51 of our guests, and just incredible hearing the stories. And that excites me to keep going for year 2, because that means there's more stories, there's more guests. And I truly believe, as cliche as it may sound, that the best is yet to come for the Missoula Podcast.
Yeah. Should we jump into some of my lessons and your lessons and challenges? I'm ready.
Yeah.
I'm ready.
I mean, what I love about this is here we're recording and we walk in with no plan. This is unscripted. And as as we sat down and said, hey, what are we going to talk about? You had the great idea of the three of us just sharing, not really getting into the analytics or the conversations we have, but what are some of the life lessons we've learned or the difficulties, challenges, or wins we've had with the podcast. And so this is all off the cuff. Steven asked Nick and I for 3. And so here we go, Missoula.
All right. I'm going to start us off. One of the biggest lessons I've learned in doing this with Nick and with Brandon is do what you're good at. Nick is incredible at the behind the scenes production, the video, the lights. I'm not good at much. I like to ask questions. I'm curious. And so what you guys have done, I'm skeptical. Yeah. What you guys have done a really good job is sticking me in my lane, which is here's the time you show up. Here's the very little information you need to know about the guest that's going to be on. Ask questions, draw that person out.
Let's talk about that. You've intentionally asked for very little information on the guest before they come to the studio. Why is that? I could be wrong, but I just feel like that's a better interview. I know that goes against all intuition. It's like you want to have a lot of knowledge about who you're engaging with. But I just like to think I'm one of the listeners, not knowing anything about this person. How can I ask the dumbest questions from the normal person? And it works well with me. I think it draws people out and it helps our guests slow down, especially when they're talking about like the industry or the passions that they have, to simplify it, because I'm not a very smart guy. I want to create a more genuine, authentic conversation because, as you said, curiosity is there. And rather than trying to get to a point or pitch a product, I'm just getting to know you, just asking questions and hearing stories.
Yeah. And then, the last part on do what you're good at. This is the only other thing I've done for the podcast is paint this wall black. So I'm feeling pretty good about
honestly, one of the biggest improvements to the Missoula podcast. Because if you watch the first, I think it was around episode 40-ish, maybe a little bit before then, when we just had a nice, beautiful yellow wall. And that just a black wall and a couple lights make a huge difference. Good. So
painting it's in your DNA.
Yeah.
You were made to be a painter.
Made to be a painter. Exactly.
So good.
So that's lesson 1. Brandon, what do you got? What's the lesson or challenge?
Lesson 1. It's funny. We ask these rapid fire questions on every episode. And one of the questions is, what do you find to be the weirdest thing about Missoula? Or what is weird about Missoula to you? And that question is always followed up with, what do you love the most about Missoula? And I completely guessing here. I'm a guess that 85% of the time, the answer to what is the weirdest thing in Missoula is the people. And if you don't think Missoula has weird people, like, you're part of the problem. Like you are the weird person. But on the flip side, what do people love the most about Missoula? The answer is often the people. And I guess I never realized the actual sense of community that Missoula has. Like, yeah, we wanted to create a podcast and share stories and enhance and make an impact and difference in our community. But I never really understood what community was until new relationships were made and started hearing people's stories here in the community of what community really is. And I think one of the lessons I've learned is just the importance and the value that community has. And we have a really strong community here in Western Montana.
Totally. Yeah. Nick, what do you got?
What was my first one? Wait, I got. I guess from the back end, it is always surprising to me how many people are excited to be on the podcast, excited to share their story. But then after recording, it seems like a lot of people are kind of radio silent, which is, I feel like the conversation itself is only, I don't know, maybe half, maybe a little less than half of the entire production of the podcast. But then once it's actually released and we're sharing it and trying to get the word out about their business, whatever they're talking about, that's where a lot of people kind of don't like to promote themselves, maybe is the way to put it. But it's kind of surprising to me that people aren't as
because you help
willing.
Them. You have
I try and do as much as I can.
You have like a marketing toolkit you send them with images and copy and what to post
Right.
and when to post and set them up for success. And
Yeah.
and very few do.
Right.
Interesting.
Yeah.
Why do you think that is?
I don't know. I mean, it could just be people scared to put themselves out there even more than they already did.
Right.
I feel like, I mean, from my perspective, it seems like you've already kind of laid it all out on the table on the podcast.
Yeah.
That little extra posting a photo saying, wow, I can't believe like I was able to share my story and talk about my experiences in Missoula and why I love it. Seems like a pretty simple thing to me, but you know, maybe I'll become the actual person I'm talking about right after this one's released.
You're not going to share
Not
this.
a
No
thing,
way.
yeah.
No way. I love that.
Yeah.
Stephen, what's number 2 for you? Another lesson learned.
Lesson learned is to follow what interests you. So we obviously get people that want to be on the podcast. We get people that that we proactively approach. We're asking for referrals from people that are on. This is behind the scenes that you guys don't know. But when I've been the most engaged in podcasts, it's when we're talking to somebody that is doing something that I care about. So in my small scope of things, I love business. You know, I do love business. I love the nitty gritty of entrepreneurs, of how they got started and the challenges and, oh my gosh, we didn't have any money. And so those are like the best podcasts for me. And as you can see, we've had a lot of entrepreneurs on, and Brandon's interested in that too, I think. But also there's some weird like Missoula organic lifestyle stuff that I'm interested in. And it might not be for everybody, but I know that I'm at my best when I'm actually engaged in who is here. Does that make sense? And not to say that I haven't enjoyed every single episode and there's stuff I learned from people. But just it's been better when we've gone the direction of things that we actually care about. You know, those are better conversations, obviously. So does that make sense?
Mm-hmm.
Completely. And I think from those conversations, we see it on the back end in terms of downloads, shares, engagement on social media, that I don't think it's just you and I think we found some guests that their topic or their journey, people in general care about, and they're, you know, great storytellers. They have a compelling story or how they came to Missoula or what they're doing in Missoula. And those conversations are, more enjoyable, easier, more fulfilling. And then the listenership, if that's a word, on the back end seems to align with that. And let's find more of those in year 2.
Yeah, there you go. Brandon, what about you?
Another lesson for me is I think I am continually blown away by how some of our least expected guests that maybe isn't a household name in the community comes on the show and just blows it up in terms of, again, listens, downloads, shares, content, the comments on social media posts. It isn't just an episode that drops that people listen to for 1 week, that still several weeks or months later, people are still going to and listening to that one. And I am just blown away at how wrong I've been. I'll own it, or we've been, thinking that, hey, having this guest on is going to do something great for the podcast. And it does, but it's the least expected that continually impresses and shows up.
Yeah, absolutely.
Yeah.
That's been shocking.
Yeah. And kind of piggyback off of that too, just with these little pockets of communities. Like, I mean, just the whole community idea in general is like, there's this pocket of Missoula, like everyone mentions, they love the people, but there's this pocket that doesn't really interact with this pocket, but each of their pockets are so unique and so like engaged with their specific community that they get the shares, they get the downloads, they get the listens, just because the people in that specific community are so engaged with other people that care about the things that they do. And yeah, it's always, again, surprising when some of those
Stephen,
happen.
isn't that interesting? Like, there's certain guests or topics that we may not feel the strongest or most interested in, but we know that there is a demographic in Missoula that is interested in that. And then that episode takes off where we get done recording and you and I are like, it was an all right episode, didn't it? And then it takes off because people do care about that topic. And so it's just, you can't assume in the podcast space.
That's good. Nick, what about you? Another surprise or challenge or lesson learned?
I'd say, I guess, just from my perspective, being on the back end of things is, I guess I don't think people do, or even maybe you guys realize how much actual, I guess, work goes into making the podcast what it is. And not that it's not recognized, but I feel like a lot of that is so subtle that it's like, it just happens. And every week there's a new episode, but every little, or is usually, I'll admit, I probably miss a few of them, but a lot of those little things take time to actually edit out and, again, just produce and make sure everything sounds good so that, yeah.
How
audio
often
levels
do
aren't peaking
Steven and
all
I
that.
make those sounds that drive you nuts?
You've gotten better.
Have we?
I'll say
Okay,
that.
nice work. Nice work.
Probably because I'm giving you the death glare and you
Yeah,
guys know the
seriously.
death glare from behind the camera. But yeah, it's a lot of work and I don't always get, I guess, not that I need it for any reason, recognition, but yeah, there's a lot that goes into actually making the podcast what it is.
And that's one of the things that we get complimented on all the time, how it looks, how it sounds, the production. And we get the compliments. Brandon and I get the compliments, and I hope we do a good enough job being like, it's actually Nick. He's doing a lot of that. And so, yeah, that would be a huge challenge for sure. So
Yeah, listeners, you can't see it. Even if you're watching on YouTube, you don't see the computers and the monitors and the lights. And Nick sets all this up, gets it prepared. Steven and I walk in, sit down, have a conversation, walk out. He's shutting it down. He's editing. He's promoting it. He's editing out the pops and the coffee cups hitting the table. Nick is the Missoula podcast. He's just using Steven and I.
We're just the
along way.
hosts.
We're just the hosts.
yeah. That's awesome. That's great, Nick.
Teamwork makes the dream work, you know?
Hey, Steven, before we go into
Yeah.
our third and final lesson, let's go rapid fire questions
Absolutely.
with Nick.
Absolutely.
With
Rapid fire
with the Nick.
or Burning 7.
Why? What? Yeah, why has that been a struggle for you since day one?
I think I know the answer to that.
Okay.
Because
What is-
originally, when I first made the graphic, it was rapid fire questions.
Okay.
For whatever reason, Steven decided to take that and call it the rapid 5 questions. But there were never actually just 5 questions, I don't think. So then it changed into the Burning 7, just because rapid fire turned into burning, 5 turned into 7.
Yeah, branding is not.
Wow.
Remember what we talked about?
Strengths.
Strengths. Branding is not.
You
what-
just paint the walls.
Does-
just
yeah,
paint the
exactly.
walls.
Just paint it. Doesn't Colin Cowherd have his like burning 5 or questions on his sports radio show? You know what I'm talking about? Not really. I think that's what confused me
Okay,
as well.
okay.
These are called the rapid fire questions.
Okay,
All
Yes,
right.
they are.
let's do it. So, Nick, you're not originally from Missoula, Montana.
I am
So
not.
What was your first initial memory of Missoula?
Funny enough, it wasn't when I actually moved to Missoula. It'll be 9 years this August. But my first memory of Missoula was actually the year before when I lived in Helena for the summer. Just doing like a internship type thing for college. Modest Mouse was playing at the Big Sky Brewery, and I was living in Helena. I was like, yeah, I'll go to a concert in Missoula, Montana. And I do remember this very distinctly, just driving down the interstate and you get around Hellgate Canyon and you just see the entire bowl of Missoula. And I was just like, whoa, this place is cool. And yeah, that's stuck with me all those years ago. So
Well, we're glad you're here.
We're glad you're here. A lot better than Helena. No offense, Helena. Go to coffee shop in Missoula for those long nights of
well,
editing.
you guys know me. You know I like to save my money as much as I possibly can. So I usually just drink my coffee at home. But if I do go to a coffee shop,
You're like a Folgers guy, or
I'm a Costco Kirkland Signature House Blend guy.
That's good.
okay,
That's good.
okay.
So,
Good blend.
but again, if I'm going to an actual coffee shop, I'm probably going to Copper Mountain Coffee. And my wife and her family probably keep that place in business with all of the moonshines that they make. So they usually don't get coffee. They get the moonshines, but yeah, that's the go-to.
Love it.
Favorite restaurant?
This one is surprising that it's never been mentioned,
Ooh.
but
Wait. Can we guess this?
Yes, please do.
Come on, Steven. Nick's favorite restaurant. It's never been mentioned.
He's a Minnesota guy. Is there any place that makes casseroles?
It's called Hot Dish. Thank you very much.
It's Hot Dish.
My apologies.
I have no idea.
Double front chicken.
That's been mentioned a couple times, actually.
Like Burger King. I have no clue.
There are 2 locations in Missoula now. I'll give you that hint.
5 on Black?
No.
2 locations.
1 downtown and 1 over by, I guess, kind of where.
Notorious PIG.
There it is. Yeah.
How has that not been
No
mentioned?
one has mentioned Notorious PIG. And I have been, obviously, I tally all of the restaurants, the coffee shops, all that stuff, and just keep a running total
Solid.
of what's mentioned. And
So good.
So good.
every time I'm waiting for Notorious PIG.
So good.
Notorious PIG, I love you. And I will gladly be the first one to say you're my favorite restaurant.
Love
Their
that.
mac and cheese. Oh,
So good.
Everything.
everything.
It's all
And
good.
I'm not a pickle guy, but their fire and ice pickles, incredible. So
So
Yeah,
good.
you can't get anything
Yeah.
wrong there.
What zip code do you live in?
59804. That's
What?
not true. Okay. 59803. Brandon's very confused.
I'm very confused because I was
like,
about
did
to
you
celebrate.
Did you
like,
move? That's part of maybe one of my alter egos is when I have to fill out anything with a zip code, I always say 59804 so no one knows my actual zip code. So similar to, maybe we can talk about this, my last name, zip code is actually 59803.
There you go. Which is the best zip code in the world.
On this show, you're called Nick Balla. What is your actual last name?
Nick Ball, what are you talking about? I don't know what you're talking about.
What to use the weirdest thing about Missoula?
I mean, there's a couple, I'd say the people, but there's a couple specific people that I've noticed around town that are like, I notice you every single time that I like pass this certain intersection. And I'll give a shout out. My wife and I call him Cape Guy because he's just rocking a cape. I always walk in between Mullen and Reserve. And yeah, shout out to Cape Guy.
Cape
Guy. That's awesome. What do you love most about Missoula?
I mean, again, I have to say the community as well. And just from my own personal, kind of what I said earlier, all these different pockets of community that even I'm a part of, whether it's like the hunting community or like my jujitsu community or like the church community that I'm a part of. There's all these just very distinct, unique pockets of people that I've gotten to know just throughout the years of living here that, yeah, it's just been awesome to find everything I'm passionate about and just finding other people that are passionate about it.
It's
here.
special.
So
Very special. Last question. You remember what it is?
Yes. Yes, I do. Nick, what is a book that you've read that has made a significant impact on your life?
I'd say probably, so the very first one, Freakonomics, the very first book, and then it's obviously spawned off into a bunch of other books in the podcast and everything like that. But I feel like that's probably my favorite book and series just because when I actually first watched the documentary of it, which was just a spinoff basically of the book and a few of the key points in it. Then I actually read the book, then read the next few in the series, but just kind of taking those concepts of like, just really thinking about things in a different perspective, like things aren't always what they seem, and just really kind of inspecting and kind of dissecting why something is the way it is. I've kind of like taken those lessons and applied it to kind of everything that I've done just in life.
Love it. How did your first burning 7 questions go? Dang it, I said it again.
It's the rapid 5.
That feel good?
Great.
That's awesome.
Love it.
Thanks for sharing that.
But isn't that interesting? Like even his answers,
I learned
people,
something.
community, like so important to, I haven't read it, I've been told it, but like all the studies of history and civilization, like the strongest people groups had a sense of community. And it's just, that is what Missoula is. It's an incredible, incredible community.
All right. I'm going to go to my third lesson here. Third lesson is it is really challenging. I'm going to do 2 here, actually. What a bonus. Really challenging to make it all about the guest. It's lesson number 1. And then on top of that, it's super challenging to listen back to your own voice. I've only listened to about 2 of these Missoula podcasts because I hate the sound of my voice. I pick up every lisp, spit in my mouth, weird quirk that I have. And I know if I am a coach, I would say you need to watch film. You need to evaluate yourself. You need to get better. But it is so completely hard for me. So that's like 3. And then before that, making it about the guest. So many times in conversation, you have a story about you that you want to relate to the guest so that you can, kind of get some sense of community. Like, oh yeah, I did this, and that's how normal conversations go for the most part. But on the Missoula podcast, the sole focus is on them and their story. So how do you keeping them talking without bringing you up? It is so unbelievably challenging. I now try to do it in my marriage where it's not about me, just talk all about my wife. So that's been helpful in a big sense too. And I really learned that I love talking about Stephen. I love it.
It's really hard.
It's hard.
I remember one time when I was interviewing a guy. I'm just kidding. It's really good. Really good. So that is a challenge because you want to relate so bad, or you've been there and you can find a common denominator in your history, and it's very, very difficult. For me, guys, my third one is compassion. Compassion does something to you. And when you have compassion for somebody, it causes you to make a choice. You have to move in one of 2 directions. And as I look back at our guests, I think a common theme with almost every guest we've had is they overcame something. They had a challenge, or they saw a need and they filled it. They did something. They were problem solvers. They relocated. They started a business. The list goes on and on and on. We've got 51 amazing stories. One of the biggest lessons I've learned is compassion does something. And just a couple weeks ago, episode 50, Lowell Holcoulter was on here, and the conversation about human trafficking. Lowell made a comment in that episode, if you guys recall, where he said, once you're in the mud, you're in the mud. You see it. You now have to do something with the information that's been given to you. And I think we've had a handful of episodes from Lowell to Jamie with Missoula Teen Challenge. Austin Davis talked about the healthcare. Again, almost all of the episodes brought me to a point of, wow, I'm now in the mud, as Lowell said. And probably the biggest struggle for me with the Missoula podcast is I am privy to all these conversations, and weekly I'm in the mud and forced with having to make a decision that often leads to compassion and support, or pushing me outside of my comfort zone.
Mm-hmm.
And I didn't see that coming a year ago. I thought it was just going to be all fun and high energy and conversations, but here we are with tears in our eyes talking about human trafficking and thinking about our own children, our own daughters. And now I'm forced to do something with that information. Yeah.
It's a good point. Yeah. We are in it. And that's when you're interviewing people and you're having compassion, you're having empathy. And the way that we like to do it is to really draw them out. You can't help but feel the emotions in this room a lot of time. I don't know if that comes across on the camera or listening, but it's heavy.
Yeah.
It's super heavy.
Like real life is happening for our community every day.
Yep.
Right.
And I hope that Stephen, you and I, and even Nick can be a place of encouragement for them, and somebody that just takes the time to hear them and believe in them as they move forward.
Yeah. Nick.
Yeah.
How about for you, man?
Nick Balla.
Yeah. So, just going back to, since episode 1, just amazed with the people actually listening to the podcast and just everything like that. And with that, when we started, we had a list of names where we're like, okay, this is a quote unquote big Missoula name that we want to get on the podcast. And a couple months in, we're like, we're actually getting these people that we set out, and it seemed like this huge goal that we probably did not expect to have in year 1 of the podcast. But just because of everyone listening and the community and everything like that, it happened. So with that, on the back end, I am always terrified of just, again, the whole production, cameras, lights, computers, recording of that blowing up when these I mean, really anyone, but again, these quote unquote big names,
Right.
we want them to talk about how, I mean, we want this podcast to grow. So we want them to talk about how good of an experience it was, how everything worked smoothly. So I am always terrified of just the technology and back end blowing up while we record. So
have we got
You're in
any
constant
negative?
fear.
Have we got
Constant
any
fear.
negative reviews? Has anybody said anything that hurt our feelings?
I don't think so. I mean, not that I've seen.
Get some weird emails.
We get some weird emails, some weird direct messages, stuff like that, but nothing really negative that I've seen. So that's a positive.
Great
but-
job, Nick. That's all you.
Yeah.
No,
Yeah.
it has been overwhelmingly positive.
He's auto-tuning our voices, and
Right.
that's why you can't listen back.
Yeah. It's like, that's not my voice.
Yeah.
Yeah.
That's
But yeah.
awesome.
So everything's running smoothly right now. It's happened once where the computers decided to reset while we were deep
Oh.
into a conversation, but
That's right. We had one guest we re-recorded a second episode
Yeah.
with. So yeah, it's not always been polished or perfect.
might seem that way, which is what we want to,
Which is what
what we want people to perceive. But yeah, it's
And that might be, as we close down, some of my final thoughts, and maybe you have some final thoughts as well, is I can understand why a lot of people start podcasts because it's an awesome opportunity. And I can also understand why people stop. And crazy statistics out there is if you record, is it 20 episodes or more, you're in the top 1%.
even less than that. I'm pretty sure it's like
It was 10 or
10
something,
or
I think I saw.
Yeah.
Yeah. And it makes sense because there's been multiple days and weeks where we have to pivot. We are challenged by equipment. We're challenged by our guests, rescheduling. And that's something that we hope you never see and understand. But this is a lot.
Right.
It's a lot and we love it. But man, we are constantly trying to tweak this and make it better. And we screw up, and then we have intros, and then we don't have intros, and music and Nick's voice. So anyways, it's always just a crazy ride. And I just want to thank, Nick and
It's so
Brandon.
awesome.
This is your guys' thing. Brandon does such a great job of promoting, such a great job of speaking. You are a professional speaker, and Nick, you didn't know how to run a podcast and you just figured it out. So thank you guys for doing that and just letting me show up and ask questions.
I can't thank you two enough for the last year and for the future. There's not two guys I'd rather do this with out there. It's been awesome. And there's not 120,000 people anywhere else that I'd rather have than an audience than Missoula, Montana.
Amen.
So Missoula, with that, it's been 1 year, episode 52 of the Missoula podcast. Thank you again so much. One question for you. We would love to hear from you. If you have guest ideas that you want us to reach out to, hear their story, please continue to share those. Send us a text message, 406-888-MSLA, 406-888-MSLA. We would love to get, again, we've got an ongoing list of just some great stories that we think would be awesome. But we got 52 more podcasts ahead of us coming up in year 2. So thank you so much for an amazing year 1. I truly believe the best is yet to come, and we wouldn't be where we are today for you. So thank you, Missoula. We love you.
Cue outro music.